So now that we have our, skeletons into place, we're going to start by putting in simple shapes now. So I'm going to group this and name this male. And I'm going to be starting with the female. So what I usually like to do is that I like to, make the neck not too wide and not too, I guess I'll gauge a good one. This is too thin and this is too wide. You want to go somewhere in the middle, like around where the jawline starts to taper in. And you can signify this by drawing a cylinder. So just draw a tubular shaped cylinder, and that is your neck. And then we start with the shoulder, and this is the trapezius, which I will go through later on in the muscle group section, the muscle group muscle group lecture, sorry. And then I'm going to draw the clavicle after, drawing this kind of triangular form. The clavicle is your collarbone, so it kind of has this kind of S shape, and then tapers inward like that. And do the same thing for the other side. And that's your neck to collarbone area. And then I'm going to round this body out by putting this into more of a trapezoid shape. And that's kind of like signifying the pec, or the breasts in her case. So sort of a triangular, sort of, not really triangular, but trapezoidal shape. And all I really need to do is just, keep tilting this inward and then draw a circle. And these signify the breasts. So I can just erase the outside trapezoidal shape and then just kind of curve inward and then follow the form right after. Now what I'm doing is drawing in form, and if I break this down into simple forms, it's a lot easier to draw the body rather than just trying to guess, like, okay, well, this is what the breast looks like. You want to make sure that you have, let's say, the pec here, and then you draw the circle, so then you can kind of like already know that it's going to be this kind of shape. So this looks more natural and more voluminous than just simply drawing with line. So then I'm going to start with her rib cage, and her rib cage is going to be, tilting inward, and throughout her pelvis it's going to curve outward. Now depending on where you put your legs, it kind of depends on how your legs are going to be formed. I made the legs a little bit too out there, as in outside, so I'm going to move this in a little bit. I'm going to go to the female and move her legs more inward, kind of following the pelvis. I'm going to change that for the neck for the male as well later on. So you can kind of see that's kind of like an hourglass shape with the box, with the pelvis box in the center. And then after that, I'm going to draw two tubes or two cylinders that represent legs. I'm going to draw the kneecap, which is, you can simplify by drawing a small rectangle in a box, and sort of the tendons connecting to the kneecaps. I'm going to draw another cylinder, only that's kind of facing, you know, thinner and downward. So use the gesture lines as guidelines to put in all your simple shapes. So the calf has this kind of calf muscle, that's why you have that shape. So it's not just like, it's not like this, although this is a very stylized version. It has this kind of like, this is your leg and this is your kneecap. It has this kind of up-down swaying motion. When you draw the calf and everything. So everything's almost like thick to thin all the time. You want to connect the legs and the joints together so they don't look like, you know, ball joints or stickmen. And then the feet you can simplify into boxes and the trapezoid. So that's how you do the legs. And this is where your arms are. So arms are also cylinders. You want to draw a cylinder, and your elbow is at your rib cage, or about the end of your rib cage. So let's say around here. And just draw 2 cylinders for each side. And draw the shoulders, fill in the shoulders where the cylinders are. And now let's draw another cylinder that's connected to the elbow and follow it down to the wrist. You want to make sure that it's thick here and then starts going thin when it's at the wrist. You don't want it to be like, oh, just a straight cylinder like this. You also want to show some shape change. Now I will also check for accuracies or corrections later, but once we get this block down, we can always just change it after. So when it comes to hands, I like to just block it out with like a box or a trapezoidal kind of box or shape, and then kind of give her mitten-like hands. So we have a basic skeleton, and right down to a more fleshed out kind of figure. So I'm going to lower this chest area a bit down because it feels a bit her torso feels a bit long. Especially for a girl, you want to make her body look attractive, so you also want to emphasize her curves more. So that is how you draw the female body. So now let's start with the male body. I'm going to add a new layer, and I'm going to once again start with the neck, which is a cylinder. Now when it comes to the guys, you can go a little bit more broad, so somewhere around, still not too thick and not too thin either, but in the middle, where once again where the jawline starts tapering in, and then we can draw a cylinder. And the man's chest is also broader. So what we're going to do first is we're going to kind of draw like a bit of a trapezoidal shape. Kind of overlaps the ribcage. And then we can start filling in some of the slight muscles that you can see from the outside. So one will be being the trapezius, which is part of your back muscle. And then your clavicle, which is an S kind of shape. And the reason why I'm putting this hard edge here is because that's kind of a bone, and you can feel it on your own clavicle where it kind of starts ending. And the pec is kind of trapezoidal shape, which sort of ends around the midpoint of the rib cage. So it has this kind of trapezoidal square shape. When it comes to men, it's definitely a lot more different than women's, because women's have more, I guess, more in a way more fat, especially around the breast area. So you don't really see much definition of muscle unless the woman really works out. But the guy, like, it's easier to see the muscle because they're built that way. And especially when they work out, it's definitely more visible. So you can definitely see the pec muscle. And then the rib cage, which is, or the kind of wing-like muscle. I'm not really sure what it's exactly called, but it kind of gives that more of a broad body type. And kind of start going downward again. And then right at the pelvis area are the obliques. So the obliques are kind of like the love handles, I'd say. And girls have them too, it's just not as visible because they're very curvy. But you can add them a little bit like this if you want. When it comes to drawing girls, it's easier to just have them more curvy and, you know, hint at it a little bit rather than just make it full on like love handles like this. So now we have the pelvis. You can draw a triangle, kind of slopes downward. And then we have the ab muscles that go from around the torso area all the way down to the pubic bone. So that's where your ab muscles are. And then we can start with the legs. Now the legs, you can also do cylinders again. Making sure they're connected to the hips. Can I even move these legs a little bit more inward? That's better. On the other side, just moving more inward towards the pelvis. Then we can continue drawing the cylinders. Making sure they're not too thick. And then with the kneecaps, same thing with the box. Gonna include the triangular tendons. And then with the calves for men, they're also a lot broader, they're kind of thicker because they work out the muscles. So make them a bit more angular of a cylinder. And then draw some, make sure everything is from thick to thin. Then draw the feet with the box or rectangle, and then trapezoid at the end. So now let's make the actually legs a little bit thicker of the quads, just to have a nice differentiation in shape. Connect everything. Now let's do the arms. The arms, cylinders again. This one's kind of protruding outward, so I'm just going to hint that. And this is bending inward. And I kind of hint the shoulder. Now the shoulder, especially for men, is showing the deltoid. Now the deltoid is that bulge of muscle that's like around your shoulder area. And that is kind of like one of the most prominent muscles, excluding the biceps and the tricep. So we're going to do that, we're just gonna kind of draw an oval, just to simplify it. And then a line to show that is the deltoid muscle. And we can sort of include a bit of the tricep. Kind of overlapping the deltoid, and then the bicep is kind of bulging outward here. Kind of make a small indentation, indicate his muscle, and then we're going to make a sharp bone where the elbow is, and then start thinning out his forearm. And then with his hand, just draw a bit of a trapezoid shape with mitten-like hands to simplify it. And then we can also add an indication of some forearm muscle. There are two main muscles, one that kind of surrounds the ulna and the radius, which are the two forearm bones if you look at the skeleton. You don't have to know that until much later. And now let's go with the leg muscles. Now the leg muscles, I'm just going to indicate the quad. Now the quad, there's three kinds of quads. There's one quad on the front, which is the one that you see the most when you see a man work out. So you just want to indicate, and it's connected to the kneecap, so you just want to indicate that. And the rest is kind of like hidden outside, but we're just going to simplify this quad for now and just leave it like that. Alright, so now you can see the main differences between how a girl's body is and how a guy's body is. Guy's body is more muscular and has a bigger build, and we separated this into different shapes. So yeah, and always remember that when it comes to the rib cage and the pelvis, in a way the chest area is kind of like a big block, and as well as the pelvis, and then the rest is kind of like Play-Doh. So if you think about it like this, you have a rib cage, and then your pelvis is a box, and then everything else is connected, but then the obliques are kind of like Play-Doh that's resting on top of the pelvis. So you can always keep that in mind when you simplify this body. So I will break this up into better or more simplified shapes if you guys have any more confusion, and let me know what you guys need. So anyways, this is it for this video, and when it comes to this drawing, I want you guys to fill out all skeletal, kind of blocking in like this once you have the head. So I'm going to give you guys this kind of template where the head is measured, and based on my video, I want you guys to map out the skeleton of each, like this. Simplify them into different shapes, and then go one by one, however slow that you want, to something like this. And I will give you guys simplified forms if you guys have any confusion while you guys are doing this assignment. So anyways, I'll see you guys in the next lecture. Bye bye.